Welcome to Fight News Now. I'm John Pollock. Coming up over the next hour, we will be chatting with John Ramdine and Robin Black about the fallout from UFC 197 from Saturday night in Las Vegas, the latest involving Conor McGregor and the UFC, as well as the retirement of one of Conor McGregor's teammates. All that, plus much more, coming your way on today's edition of Fight News Now. Joined as always by Robin Black and John Ramdine, we will dive into UFC 197 from Saturday night. In the main event, it was Jon Jones winning all 5 rounds. I think most would agree, over Ovince St. Preux, who ended up breaking his arm in the second round, lasting the distance, which I would take as a moral victory for Ovince St. Preux. But a lot of people that you hold Jon Jones at a certain level, as many would say the top fighter in the world, didn't to me have a performance that exactly wowed you when you look at his entire catalog of past fights. But it was his first fight in over 15 months, and said it would be a very different Jon Jones when he fights Daniel Cormier, which I think would have to be a necessity.
Yeah, I actually thought it was an outstanding performance by Jon Jones, considering the fact that he's taking this fight against OSP, who took it on short notice, so to speak. He's dealing with a big athletic guy. The goal is to go in there and do what Jon Jones has done in the past, dismantle his opponents. But OSP, everybody knows, they called me an OSP hater. I became a fan of OSP on Saturday night because, as you mentioned, the guy had his arm broken. Jon Jones picked him up and slammed him on his shoulder. He kicked him in the body. He kicked him in the head. He destroyed his lead leg, and OSP still somehow managed to move forward. He tried to land his punches on arguably the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. I think it's important. You pointed out that he's been off for 15 months. You know you're going to be fighting Daniel Cormier. First fight went 25 minutes. Chances are the second fight's going 25 minutes. It was very important for him to get in there, get comfortable once again, and you saw why Jon Jones is one of the best fighters in the world, because of his creativity and his finishing abilities. Although he didn't finish OSP, he did his damn best to try to finish him. OSP is just very durable.
And OSP fought a very smart fight. You know, staying out, trying to stay out of range is tough, because what do? You stay all the way out and you have to pass his long legs to get in. If you get in, he pushes you to the clinch. So he fought a game plan not that much different than Rashad fought. We saw how that turned out, and this turned out very similar. You don't get as much engagement out of Jon Jones, so maybe you get a little more self-preservation out of it, but you also don't really find the opportunities to do much back to him. I thought Jones fought a very smart fight, took what was given to him, and won every round.
I think that now they focus on the fight that everyone wants, see, originally with Daniel Cormier. I mean, that is somewhat still up in the air. It's pending Daniel Cormier's health, but certainly UFC 200 is the target for that particular fight, and I think Jon Jones, he outlined it. That was who he was preparing for, was Daniel Cormier, and you'll see a much different Jon Jones against Daniel Cormier. But I thought it was great having Daniel Cormier's insight in real time in the broadcaster's booth for that particular fight. And Daniel Cormier is someone that you can tell the amount of hours he has spent with his team dissecting everything Jon Jones does. This is someone that is very dialed into Jon Jones, and there's as many questions about Cormier and how he adjusts for the rematch.
Yeah, very true, but at the same time, he pointed out that if it was me in there based on Jon Jones' performance, that Jon Jones wouldn't win. However, Jon Jones wouldn't have fought the same fight that he did against OSP in the second fight with Daniel Cormier. Obviously, you tailor your style based on the opponent that you're facing. And OSP seemed gun-shy right from the get-go. Jon Jones just needed to settle into his comfort zone. And Robin pointed out he could attack from the outside, which you saw him do very, very well. But the best work we saw from Jon Jones was in close. You saw with the highlights there with those elbows and the knees, his creativity, his aggression. And we've seen Daniel Cormier. Cormier moves forward, and we're going to probably see more of that in the second fight.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that second fight. The first one was gold, and they've learned a lot more about each other. But, go watch anything. Go watch 10 videos of Prince. We were talking about that. Prince was brilliant. Every performance was brilliant. But there was that one real special one at the Super Bowl, and a few special ones. The other ones become very good performances. That's what Jon Jones did here. This wasn't a Super Bowl performance, but it was a very good performance.
Someone who had an outstanding night was Demetrius Johnson. I think this was the most impressive defense he's had of the flyweight championship against Henry Cejudo. This was an unbelievable dismantling of a very tough opponent in Henry Cejudo, who was able to get DJ down very briefly, but when he got up and targeting the body with those knees and then that finishing sequence, this was an outstanding performance, and I think enough people that had they watched this pay-per-view, I think you walked away maybe not enamored with the main event performance, but watching Demetrius Johnson, I think that he really did, to me, turn a corner with a lot of people with this performance.
Yeah, it's again, I'm not going to try to compare him to Floyd Mayweather, but I'm going to compare him to Floyd Mayweather. We look at why aren't people getting onto the Demetrius Johnson bandwagon. This guy's one of the most exciting fighters in the world right now. People were arguing before, oh, he's going the distance. I think he's finished 5 of his last 7 opponents. He knows how to get the job done. Technically, he's one of the best out there, if not the best out there. His mobility, his fight IQ, the decisions that he's making. I just think because mixed martial arts is different than boxing, if Demetrius Johnson was like Floyd and had 50 wins under his belt, I think the world would be paying attention, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the future. You get yourself, 5, 6, 10 more wins, and people will have to pay attention to you.
It must be scary when you get in there with him and you think, you're a Henry Cejudo or you're a top 10 flyweight, and you think you've got a handle on what the game is. I'll strike out here, I wrestle here, and then there's all these spaces in between the typical positions and movements, and that's where he owns you. He puts it somewhere that you're not familiar with or you're not comfortable with, or he's dominant over you, and then he puts the fight to an end. It really was beautiful. And had it gone on longer, he'd have found other places to do that.
It seems everyone is settled on the most logical next fight for him is going back to bantamweight and fighting Dominic Cruz. And it's something that I personally don't enjoy about the mentality of so many people, is that someone is so dominant, now we have to find a way to handicap them and go back to a weight. There's a reason DJ came down the flyweight at the first time. This is not a big flyweight. I mean, 2 weeks out, this guy's sitting around 137 pounds. So while it would be a tremendous fight with Dominic Cruz, I don't believe in this idea that, let's put him at a disadvantage by going to a weight class that is not his natural weight class.
True, I understand that, but at the same time, you look at his history, he only has 2 losses. That fight with Dominic Cruz was very close. And he has a win over the former WEC bantamweight champion in Miguel Torres. So you can understand.
Why aren't people calling for Dominic to make 125? They wouldn't expect that of him because that's not realistic.
However, if Dominic Cruz, we all recognize how good this guy is, if he just goes and starts wiping out his division, you look at the top challengers at 135 pounds, if he manages to do right now, Demetrius Johnson, since that draw to Ian McCall, won 10 fights. If Dominic Cruz does the exact same thing, and I know Dominic Cruz not known for finishing his opponents, but if he goes on a roll towards the end of that 10-fight streak and he starts finishing guys, people will ask the same thing, just like they were with Jose Aldo. It's time for Jose Aldo to go up to 155 pounds until he met Conor McGregor. So you can understand.
Very different body types,
sure,
though. I mean, Jose Aldo
I get it.
should probably be at 155.
Frankie Edgar should be fighting at 135 pounds, but he was the 155-pound champion.
Did anybody watch Bellator? Speaking of,
smokes.
While we're at it, this will give you a perfect example. You got a guy, Ben Henderson, who is a brilliant 155-pound fighter. He has fought twice at welterweight. The first time against a huge guy, Brandon Thatch, and he had the perfect game plan with which to beat him. Then the second time, who did he fight the second time?
Masvidal.
Our friend Masvidal, who we are immense fans of. Masvidal really was another 155-pounder up there. If you're going to beat the larger man, you have to be faster and you have to be more skillful. If you are faster and more skillful, but he's larger, you can make that work. He wasn't faster or necessarily more skillful because Koreshkov is brilliant in his own right, and he fought a brilliant fight. So then he was as good, as fast, and as skilled and bigger. And that's what you get when that happens.
Yeah, we'll get more to Bellator later on as well. But let's finish off discussing the lightweight fight involving Edson Barboza and Anthony Pettis. Edson Barboza, I thought, won every minute of this fight. He looked outstanding. He was patient. And he just outstruck Anthony Pettis. He had a perfect game plan for him. And I think a lot of people now are going to hang everything on the 3 straight losses for Anthony Pettis and conveniently forget how a lot of people scored that Eddie Alvarez fight for Anthony Pettis. But nonetheless, this is certainly a step back for Anthony Pettis in the lightweight division.
Sure, but at the same time, I don't really look at it like that. I look at this performance. I had Edson Barboza winning rounds 1 and round 3. I thought, even though round 2 was so close, and I understand how some people could give it to Edson Barboza, I gave it to Anthony Pettis. This is what I look at. In the middle of the fight, Anthony Pettis is jumping, trying to throw flying knees, spinning wheel kicks, just crazy technique.
Didn't land any of this.
He scored. He's trying his best. The inside of his leg was brutalized, yet he's still trying to use mobility and movement. He's trying his best. He's trying to make it an as exciting fight as humanly possible. And I think for the fans, that's what we got. We got to see a spectacular display of mixed martial arts kickboxing. One guy has to win, one guy has to lose. Tonight it was Edson Barboza. Back in July, it was Tony Ferguson's night when he choked him out. That's just the way it works.
And you're both right, because from Anthony's perspective, to Pollock's point, Anthony wants to be the champ again. So that's a setback. There's no doubt about it. Now you're not being talked about. You win this fight, and really, well, we know how quickly the overreaction culture that we're in, and it's not just fighting. It's something that we see in media and in our world, really. People overreact and try to assign meaning to everything. But there's no doubt, when you've lost 3 in a row, nobody's talking about you fighting for the title, and that's something he really wants. But as a fight, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And this guy went in there and he put on a good performance. But he was the second best fighter in that cage that night.
All right, that wraps up our look at UFC 197, but we will have more coming up. And for Robin Black, John Ramdeen, I'm John Pollock, and Fight News Now continues.